Okay, so earlier this year, I was asked if I had anything that I'd like to share at the conference this year. And I knew I was going to be going to Japan on a pilgrimage, so I wrote a short paragraph and submitted that. I didn't expect, I thought there were other topics that would supersede mine, but suddenly I get an invitation to share our pilgrimage to Japan. So we had 20 people. Well, let me say something about pilgrimage has been part of Japanese life for millennia. The Japanese, in the course of their life, make several pilgrimages to sacred places, places that are spiritually rich, you could say. To visit places that have historical significance in terms of their spiritual richness and heritage. And while I was in Japan, I spent close to 10 years in Japan. While I was in Japan, I got enamored. I had this idea of doing one of the big pilgrimages around the island of Shikoku, with 88 temples around the island of Shikoku. But it takes 3 months, it's 1,000 kilometers, and I could never figure out how to do 3 months. And later on, I heard about the Kumano Kodo pilgrimages. Kumano is the Kumano Hongu, or the Kumano pilgrimage, consists of a pilgrimage to 3 Kumano shrines in the Wakayama area of Japan. And there are pilgrimage routes. There are 6 or 7 pilgrimage routes, all leading to the main Kumano shrine called Kumano Hongu. And over the course of centuries, Japanese people, no matter what station in life they are, made these pilgrimages, including the emperor. And the pilgrimage trail that we chose for this trip was the Nakahechi pilgrimage route, called the Imperial Route. This was the route that the emperor during the Heian period, around the 9th and 10th century, during the Heian period, the emperor himself made this pilgrimage about 40 to 50 kilometers through these pretty rugged mountains. Now, having done it twice, I can't even get it in my head how they got him or her, I don't think maybe there was one female empress, how they got him up that mountain, or those mountains. Whether they had him on their shoulders, or they made him hike or walk up those, I don't have a clue. These are pretty steep trails. So Lutsko and I, my wife Lutsko and I, about 5 or 6 years ago, we thought we would take on some of these pilgrimages, and we did the Nakahechi one, and then we did one up in northern Japan, in the Dewa area of northern Japan. So we thought so I came back to our organization in London, and I said, we were in the middle of a program, and I asked the production guys, would you ask around to see if there'd be anybody interested in doing a pilgrimage with us to Japan? And next thing you know, there's 20 people who want to go on this pilgrimage. So we started planning this thing 7 or 8 months ago. And at the end of September, all 20 of us went to Japan, and we undertook this pilgrimage. This was, if you remember, or paying attention to the news, there were several major typhoons in the area. One damaged the pilgrimage route that we were on. They had to make detours on it because there were some landslides and some fallen trees. They had to make detours on these pilgrimage routes. And then as we were arriving there was a second typhoon that came through, and people were arriving in the middle of the typhoon. The typhoon is 100 miles away. The planes were still landing, and we were going to the airport to meet them. So we all gathered in Kyoto, and I knew people would be jet lagged because it's a long trip from England to Japan. It's a 12-hour flight. So we thought, rather than throw people in the mountains right away, we would visit some important places in the Kyoto area. So we got a hotel in Kyoto near the Heian Shrine, the main Heian Shrine, called Heian no Mori. That was the name of the hotel. There was a beautiful cemetery with a Buddhist temple behind the hotel, which we'll show you here. We didn't know, we discovered that ourselves. There's a beautiful cemetery going back over 1,000 years with a beautiful pagoda. And behind the pagoda there's a mound with one of the early emperors from the Heian period buried there. And the emperors at that time had no power. The Fujiwara family actually ran Japan, and they married into the emperor's lineage and kind of controlled Japan. So this mound where the emperor was buried, he's only 28 years old. And he was succeeded by a 5-year-old emperor. So you can see how the Fujiwara family was kind of manipulating things at that time. So we started in Kyoto, and I wanted to get people's legs prepared for the pilgrimage. So we decided to climb Mount Hiei, but there was a lot of typhoon damage. So rather than do that, we took a bus. It's a very big area. Mount Hiei is where Tendai Buddhism was established in Japan in maybe the 8th century by a monk called Saicho, who had studied in China, Tiantai Buddhism. And he'd come back to Japan and set up this Buddhist complex on top of Mount Hiei, which is the biggest mountain in Kyoto. It's in the northwest corner, which, according to the Buddhists and shamans of the time, that's the area where more evil, negative energy comes in. So they built this temple complex there to protect the city of Kyoto. And so these are amazing monks up there. They're called the Marathon. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Marathon monks. These monks train, they run 40 kilometers at night in the mountains every night. Every night, 40 kilometers through the mountains in straw sandals for 1,000 days. Now, not all of them make it. In fact, most of them don't make it, the 1,000 days. But the person now in charge of Mount Hiei did, in fact, run. This is thousands consecutive days. So these are considered warrior monks. The monks of Mount Hiei were considered warrior monks, and they always made a lot of trouble for the city of Kyoto. They were always getting into mischief. And one of the great warlords of Japan, Oda Nobunaga, he went out and he went to war with them and burned down Mount Hiei, and then they rebuilt it. So we started Mount Hiei. We did some hiking in the mountains of Mount Hiei. We must have covered 5 to 10 kilometers in the mountains. And then the next day we went to Fushimi Inari, which is a series of orange, vermilion-colored gates. They're like, I don't know if you know what tori are. They're little gates before you enter a Shinto shrine. They're a series of gates that go on up into the mountains for about 5 kilometers. So it's a pretty steep climb. So we did that climb, all getting ourselves ready for the Nakahechi route. And then the next day we went to Nara, and we went to a temple called Muroji. And in early times, one of the most sacred places in Japan was a mountain complex called Koya, Mount Koya, or familiarly called Koyasan. Micho often talked about Koyasan in his lectures, because in fact he grew up not too far from there in Wakayama Prefecture in a place called Kokawa. So he knew of Koyasan as a child, and so he talked about it, and he mentioned this is where serious monks train, in these mountains in Koyasan. So at that time, in past times, women were not allowed to climb Mount Koya to go into that Buddhist area. That was how it was back then. So what they did, they established a women's Koyasan called Muroji, which is another part of Nara province or Nara prefecture. And so we went and visited Muroji. And for me, that was really one of the most magical parts of the journey here. Not only was the grounds impeccably beautiful, but there was a stairway that went up into the mountains. It just snaked up in the mountains with high rises. The steps were real high, and it just didn't seem like it ever was going to stop. It was like the stairway to heaven. And then it just leveled off. And there was one I think it was a priest, one guy running a little shop up there at the top of this mountain. And then one by one, all the other 19 people came up. And we were sitting way up high in Muroji. And it was quite a magical experience. And the next day, we went to several shrines and temples in the Nara area. We went to see the great Buddha in Todaiji. And so this is all shaking off the jet lag and getting ready for Nakahechi. And then we went to Koyasan itself. And we stayed at a Shingon Buddhist temple, because Koyasan was founded by the monk Kukai, or Kobo Daishi is his posthumous name. And he also studied in China. He brought back a particular form of Buddhism called Shingon Buddhism, which means true words, or in Sanskrit it means mantra. And so they have, it's an esoteric Buddhism, so a lot of their practices are only known amongst the monks and they keep it amongst themselves. So it's called esoteric Buddhism. And so we stayed in Koyasan, all 20 of us stayed at a temple called Muryoko Inn, which would be translated as unlimited light, Muryoko, unlimited light. And we stayed in this for 2 nights. And the first morning we had a meditation at like 5 in the morning with a fire ceremony. And the fire ceremony is where you may write out things on a little wooden placards, things that you wish or things that you want to take care of in your life, and then the monks will pray during the ceremony and burn these in a big, massive fire ceremony. So we were privy to that. But more important and more interesting than that was the opportunity to have a lecture by a Shingon priest. And this lecture was unique in that it was a Swiss-born priest who had been in Muryoko Inn for 23 years. He didn't show up like last week. This is a serious Shingon. In fact, he was one of the senior priests in this temple. He's Swiss-born. He's spending most of his time in Laos, dealing with some of the poorer parts of Laos and dealing with some of the sicknesses there. But I don't know if he was there because he knew we were bringing a big group. But he was there, an amazing guy named Kurt, or in Japanese called Kuruto. His name is Kurt, Kurt Genso, which is his priestly name. And Kurt came in and gave us a lecture in English on Shingon Buddhism, on the monk Kukai, who set up the whole area. Koyasan has hundreds of Shingon temples, hundreds. And so he explained who Kukai was. And then the next day we went to a famous cemetery in Japan called Okuno-in, where some of the most famous people in Japan are buried. This has got to be one of the most sacred places in Japan. It's these ancient cedar trees, 500 to 1,000 years old, a whole forest of those, interspersed with gravestones from historical figures in Japan, including recent company presidents and so forth, who wanted to be buried in. So if you're anybody in Japan, you're buried in Okuno-in Cemetery. So that was the place to die and to be buried. So we went to Okuno-in Cemetery. We did some hiking through the trails near there and arrived there. And after spending 2 days at Muryoko Inn and eating exquisite temple food, by the way, incredible food the monks prepared, the next day we set off for Nakahechi. We took a bus ride down to the starting point called Takijiri. And there'll be a photo there of all 20 of us standing there in front of a little shrine called the Oji, Takijiri Oji. Oji are these little teeny shrines. They're peppered along the pilgrimage route to protect the travelers. So you stop at, every 3 or 4 kilometers, there's a little oji there, a little shrine. So you go and kind of ring the bell and wake up the sleeping god or something, give him a little money, you call him, they say thank you, and then you move on. So we did that, and we would alternate who's going to contribute and who's going to pray for the group and so forth. But we got everyone, and then you get a little stamp, and there's a little place you could stamp your little book, a little passport book, if you had one, and then you could move on. So it's about 40 to 50 kilometers of a pilgrimage to the Kumano Hongu, the main Kumano shrine. The main Kumano shrine, I think it was last year, it celebrated its 2050th birthday. Get that in your head. 2050th birthday. So this is a shrine. The deity is, I had a chance to study Japanese mythology there, the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki. The deities represented in these shrines are the very beginning deities of the universe. The Izanagi, Izanami. These are the primordial male-female deities of the universe that are in these Kumano shrines. So that is why the emperor made the pilgrimage himself to these shrines, and why they were a pilgrimage destination for many Japanese people. And in ancient times, the Kumano shrines, because there was no internet and things like, you'd only get rumor and word of mouth about these places. They were like dreams and imaginary temples and palaces that existed somewhere in the outer frontiers. So we made the pilgrimage to about 40 or 50 kilometers. It's a pretty steep climbs, up climbs, down climbs. The downs were even more treacherous than the up climbs because of the rocks were slippery and so forth. But all 20 got through that 50 kilometers without any injuries. A few people feel anxiety attacks, but no injuries. And then we arrived in the evening at the Kumano Hongu. They closed down the admin offices around. They had closed. It was really quiet. The Emperor's chrysanthemum, the doors, the big gates to the shrine had this beautiful Emperor's seal, beautiful seal. And then you enter the grounds, and there are the Hongu shrines. And if you remember, Micho used to use the chrysanthemum seal in the early days of macrobiotics, and then I think he got pulled up for that. But I don't know who pulled him up for it. Then he developed his own seal, his own crest. But originally he used to use the Emperor's seal. Having studied a little bit of Shinto, I can understand his logic, because the word kushi shows up a lot in the Japanese mythology. The word kushi, you see it, you run into it quite a bit. And then from the second, that's the first Kumano shrine, and then the second Kumano shrine, we took a riverboat. We went down the Kumano River, about 20 kilometers in the pouring rain. All 20 of us on old boats. That's the way we used to go from the first shrine to the second. You'd go down the Kumano River on boats. So we all got on boats and went down the Kumano River. It was the mountains were all shrouded in fog, deep fog. There was all sorts of predatory birds and ospreys and all sorts of, it was an incredible experience. And then we went to the second shrine called Hayatama. And you'll see that in the video montage. And then the third shrine was Kumano Nachi, and this was to honor a particular waterfall. Because in Japan, Shinto, which many people interpret as nature worship, it's not really nature worship as one would, by default, understand nature worship. The Japanese would have a certain sensitivity to unusual natural phenomena that had almost a spiritual energy about it, something that had a very unique kind of energy. And then they would deify that. They would usually put a braided rope around it, a tree or a rock or a waterfall, and then they would hang little white strips called shibe off of that, and they would deify that natural phenomena, and sometimes build a shrine nearby and house the deity of that particular deity, that kami-san, as they call it.
20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay. We're going to go through 80 photos in 20 minutes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
yeah, okay, so that was the thing. And then finally we finished on the Issei Grand Shrines. Issei, if those of you don't know, that's the most sacred place in Japan. All Japanese in their lifetime will go to the Issei. It's dedicated to the sun goddess, Amaterasu or Mikami. She's the deity. The object of worship is a mirror, an 8-sided mirror in the heart of, and only the emperor is allowed into that space where that mirror is, that Goshintai, that object of worship. The sun goddess, which in the Japanese flag is the sun. You see the sun on the Japanese flag. So it's been we've been hiking for 11 days. We've been hiking through the mountains for 11 days, and the weather's been coming off the typhoons. It's been all over the place. We woke up that morning. We weren't sure whether to go to the Issei Naiku, the Gekku, the two possible shrines we could go to. We decided at the last moment we would go visit where the sun goddess is. So it was 7 kilometers away. We all got up at 5 in the morning, 20 of us, and we walked 7 kilometers along a river called the Uji River. We got to the bridge, the Uji Bridge that leads you into the Issei Naiku, these grand shrines. And just as we got to the bridge, the sun broke above the trees. This was, for us, the whole point of the pilgrimage, where we're going to visit the sun goddess. We arrive in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. 20 of us are standing there, and the sun just rises above the tree amidst the clouds. And then 15 minutes later, it disappears and we don't see it the rest of the day. And then after that, our tour is finished. We go visit a family miso-run operation, which will be some photos. And then we return to Kyoto. So that was our 12-day pilgrimage. So when you go through these photos, you have a little bit of background. So let's do it. All right, there's 20 of us, okay? That's me. You know, that's my wife, Mitsko. That's our managing director, Sheila Palmer. This is Deborah, she's one of our trustees. This is Andy Osha, she's a television personality, comedian, and now living in Hollywood. Who else? We have Nicholas, this guy here, Nicholas Allen, he's one of our trustees. And this is the photographer who did most of the photography. So that's 20 of us. We're starting at the hotel, Hand No More. We're standing in front of the hotel, 20 of us right there. And then that's next door to the hotel, Okazaki Shrine. And this is that cemetery behind the hotel, overlooking Kyoto. That's all Kyoto in the background. And that's Kyoto in the background, right there, big city. And that's the stair, that's a long stairway. Right behind here is the pagoda. You'll see it up on the top up there. Looks like Andy and somebody there on the stairway there. It's at night. They decided to go up and do this on their own at night and take photos. And this is also in the cemetery. Obviously, beautiful bronze statue of Buddha. And this is when we go up to Mount Hiei. It's a very big area, a very big complex, many miles wide. This was a particular temple we went to. They were in doing ceremonies. A bunch of priests were in there when we were there. So it's pretty high up there. This is some of the priests that were in that temple. They were going from one place to another. This is pretty high up in the mountains. You see it? Okay, and we're having lunch here up in Mount Hiei. We're having lunch overlooking Lake Biwa. Lake Biwa is the largest lake in Japan, and you can see how high up we are. And that's Yamashina City there on the banks of Lake Biwa. Biwa is an instrument, if you don't know. Biwa is an old Japanese instrument, and the lake is the shape of that instrument. And then that's Mount Hiei, that's a bell. That's me, looks like ringing the bell. It cost me 50 yen to do that. You donate, you put some money. Let me get back a little bit on that. You have to put some money in that little box there. And so you get to ring that once. And that's the same bell from a little bit of a distance. Okay, that's a piece of sculpture, obviously, with a little bit of water. Waterfall, water spout. Still at Mount Hiei. First, okay, this is the second day we entered Fushimi Inari. These are the gates I've mentioned to you. These gates go on for about 5 kilometers into the mountains. They go pretty steep climb here. That's me with my little walking stick. And then this is more of the, as I say, these are donated. These are all, sorry. Yeah, right there. These are all donated. This is a company that donated this. Komatsuki, I can't quite read it.
Komatsuki
Han Kin. Okay, Komatsuki Han Kin. So it's a company name. It's a company name. This means, that little thing means company, and so that companies donate these here. So all of these have been donated, thousands of them, thousands. And then at the end of the 5-kilometer walk, we are leaving there, and there's a sign that says Amazake. Amazake, we just climbed, we were all sweating, having done this big walk, and there's a sign called Amazake, and we go in and this woman is serving really, really good Amazake. And you can get it hot or you can get it cold. And so half of us got it hot, half of us got it cold, and this is the little ginger that goes with it. This is the Amazake cold. That's the Amazake cold right there. That's one I had. So that was a real treat after that long walk. We were not expecting, that was one of the gifts and magical showings up. Okay. Oh, this is when we get to Muroji. This is Muroji, the woman's koya-san. This, for me, was probably one of the most magical places in the whole trip for me, was going to Muroji. really, really sacred, really special place. Like, this was also part of Muroji. You can see how old these are. Just go back well over 1,000 years, well over 1,000 years. And really still taken care of. Still, the grounds, it's still manicured. They're still taken care of. There were some ceremonies and chanting going on in maybe this building, I'm not sure it was this one, or this is one of the monks that was there. And this is the stairway that just goes on and on and on. You can see, check out these trees.
No.
Check out these trees. Try maybe 600-700 years old. And it's all like that up there, going all the way up. It takes about a half hour, or maybe more, to climb up those stairs. And then we get to the top, we met this guy, and he's doing some calligraphy for one of the group. And this was a temple building at the top of that stairway that we went. You can see how old it is. And this is all on the top up there again. This is Sheila, let's go to the middle. This is the group again. These are the walking sticks. See all the hiking boots. Okay, this is also on Muroji. This is a 5-tiered pagoda. This is a World Heritage, UNESCO World Heritage pagoda, which means it's been recognized as a precious asset. You should never ever take it down, or you should always take care of it. I'm not sure what all the laws related to being World Heritage are recognized require. Okay, this is a small shrine or temple in Nara called Hanyaji. Goes back to the 6th or 7th century, one of the oldest temples in the Nara area. And it's all got these flowers called cosmos flowers that came from Mexico. And unlike most Buddhist temples, the grounds are generally pretty clear. This had all cosmos temples everywhere on the grounds.
Just over 10 minutes.
Okay, we're getting there. There's Todaiji. This is where the great Buddha is. This is where the great Buddha, bronze, is the largest bronze Buddha in the world. This is also part of Todaiji. This is a Shinto shrine or a Buddhist shrine as part of Todaiji. This also is part of Todaiji as well. We all were going up to there and had a beautiful view of Nara up there. These are all gravestones here. Maybe it's priests and others who have lived there. Okay, this is Muryoku-in. As we get to Koyasan, this is Muryoku-in. This is the entranceway to the temple we stayed at. This is the worship hall. This is where we had the morning meditation and fire ceremony in that hall. This is the garden on the same grounds, same where the temple is. This is the garden. This is the hallway in the temple. This is the hallway. We were staying in one of these rooms. We were staying in these rooms. To the left is the gardens.
Great.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, this is all us having temple cooking here.
Oh, no.
How's that?
Yeah.
Wait, please.
This is Muryoku-in. This is the temple here. This is us. We had several meals there like that. And this is where Kurt came in and did some talks with us. This is some close-up of the dishes there. This is Kurt. Great guy, fantastic guy. I'll see if I can bring him over to London sometime. I love his energy. Clearly enlightened soul, no doubt about it. This is Okunoin. This is the cemetery. As I said, 1,200 years old. Who knows? Well over 1,000 years old. Ancient trees. A lot of them were down because of the typhoon. This is still Koyasan. This is a very famous pagoda in Koyasan. There's another pagoda in Koyasan. This is us again. This is the beginning of Nakahechi. This is Takijiri. You can see the little shrine to the right there. This is the beginning of of our hike through this is the beginning of the pilgrimage to the Kumano Shrine here. This is all of us here taking a photo at the start of the pilgrimage. Everything up till now has just been preparatory. Kumano Kodo. Kodo means ancient road. The ancient road to Kumano. I'm not sure exactly what office that is. How's that for a view? That's us going through the mountains. There's my wife that's going in the front with her little pilgrimage hat on. This is an OG. This is Osakamoto OG. This is one of the OG. There's no longer a shrine there. This is the remains of an OG here. This was deep into the pilgrimage here. Again, this is little shrines, little sculptures you count in the middle. This is the middle of the mountains. This is deep in the mountains. So somebody took the time and energy to build this here, and people make offerings to it as they. This is where we stayed on the first night. It's a campsite owned by a nice Japanese family. We arrived there late at night. We had our headlamps on because we couldn't see. It was so dark in the trails. Then we got back on the road. This is us going through the mountains again. Look at these. This is the routing system. This is us going through there again. Yeah. And this is where we get to Kumano. We've now hiked 45 kilometers, and now we're coming into the back door. This is the back door to the Kumano Hongu Shrine. This is not the main hall. This is like an entrance hall. Here, just took a couple of photos of that. We had the next day there was a Shinto ceremony done for all 20 of us inside there by a Shinto priest. So that was an unexpected event that happened. This is Nick Allen, one of our trustees, in front of. This is of course that's the gateway. It takes you into where the Kumano shrines are. That's the emperor's. That's the Emperor's chrysanthemum seal there. This says the founding 2,050 years. I'll give you a sense of how old this is. The sacred object here is a three-legged crow. According to ancient myths, a monk came across a three-legged crow in these areas and saw that as an auspicious sign, and they built a shrine. So they were more like shamans back at that time, the founding of these. This is Inomine, one of the most famous hot springs in Japan. So we all went there the first night and kind of, after walking through the mountains, we all sat in these hot springs, sulfur, very mineral-rich hot springs there. Beautiful little town called Inomine. Even the emperor went here in ancient times. It's that famous. Yeah, this is the hot springs here. Azumaya. So, and this is us again. Where are we here? Kumano Hongu. This is in front of the main shrine, the main shrine, Kumano Shrine. And then this is the stairway up to the main shrine. And you can see the architecture there. And this is us going down the Kumano River in boats. It's about 20 miles, maybe 17 to 18 miles downriver in the rain. Look at that. That's how it was that morning. It's like those old Chinese pictures, huh? And this is into Hayatama, the second of the Kumano shrines. This is the bridge into the Hayatama shrine. Haya means fast, Tama means spirit, so this Kumano is of the fast spirit. And this is the Kumano. This is Hayatama. You can see on the top of the characteristic Shinto shrine. These are called chigi, like antenna-like things. I forget what these are called. This is uniquely Shinto. When you see these, this is uniquely Shinto. And this is where. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, this is again Hayatama. Let me go back a little bit, because there's the braided rope. Anytime something's been deified in Japan, this braided rope called the shimenawa is put in that area, and little paper, that hanging white paper called shide. But another word for paper is kami, which is the same word for God. So the way the paper has a double meaning here. Okay, this is the great warrior Benkei. My second son is named Benkei, by the way. This is the think of your greatest warrior from your country, and this is Japan's version of that, Benkei. And then, okay, this is us. This is us going up what's called Daimon Zaka. Daimon means the great gate. Zaka means hill or slope. So this took us a half hour to climb from top to bottom. And the trees were just out of this world. They were just so venerable, so old, so ancient. This is miso.
Wow.
This is miso. Look at the rock. Look at the weights on top. Look. See the rock? Look at the rocks. It's all miso. These barrels are probably 500 years old. That says number 16. Probably, was that 17?
We're finishing.
Yeah, I'm almost done. This is Tsujioka-san. Tsujioka-san is the miso master. He's the guy. This is his shop, his family shop. He inherited it from his father, who got it from his father, who got it from his father, who got it from his father, and just keep going.
Great photo. Yeah.
He's a great guy too. He really welcomed us and opened us up. There he is, explaining to us. That's a tamari. In there is tamari. Oh no, where the ladder is where tamari. We all went up and we all checked out the tamari in there. And then that's the shop he has in front of the factory, in front of the where he makes the miso. That's the shop. That's Sheila, managing director, and Andy. And that's his shop there. And it says miso master, and I think Tsujioka, that's his, I don't know his first name. What is it? Tomoko-san. Tsujioka. Yomimasu.
Miso-daru.
Miso master, and this Tsujioka. Can you read?
Tsujioka Jozo.
Jozo. Okay, so that's his name, Tsujioka Jozo. And thank you.
Thank you.